a good deal, because the formative period since putting my first record out, that 7 or 8 years before success really kicked in, some of it was quite a sort of harrowing experience, and it stays with you. It gives you a perspective on things. It stood me in good stead in a way. We all know that the world functions on nonsense. And so it sort of debunked a few sort of myths and stripped away, cleaned my eyes a little bit as to how things worked, and also it allowed me to develop some relationships which proved to be very important. Whereas if success had come very quickly and you just immediately turn into a pound sign in everyone's eyes, it's more difficult to form sort of, but there's a degree of nurture that's necessary if longevity is what you're after, but yes, really the way that I saw the world, when occasionally people will put the question to me, did you ever pine for these days when you were free of all this whatever press or hassle, or people being on your case in this way, and you were sort of this sort of very credible, obscure artist. But that's just a fantasy that people have. They just put those two words together. I said, if you knew what it was actually like, you'd never wish anyone back there. It's like the toilet tour, as it's known, when you're playing the, smallest and least pleasant venue in town on a regular basis, is not for the faint-hearted, and anyone should just watch the Anvil film repeatedly. It's like Spinal Tap in the back of the bus used to be quite a sort of painful experience to watch, as funny as it is, because it was that close to the bone, and they'd at least been successful and were now less so. I was billed under spare ribs famously at one club. Spare ribs sold out, David Gray, 9 o'clock. But I mean, that's putting I went through many of permutations of the same sort of miserable story, and yeah, it's not for the faint-hearted. So that stuff stays with you, and I think success comes. That negotiating success is equally complicated and riddled with illusion as well. A lot of it of your own creation. I think the world of success is a much more self-conscious place. It's like essentially a hall of mirrors that shines you a distorted view of yourself back repeatedly from many different angles, until you start to get a bit paranoid about what everybody thinks about you. And I think everybody has to go through that. And I don't think it completely leaves you. You are essentially exposed and vulnerable, and you're in the public eye, and you can be criticised or categorised or drawn as a sort of cartoon version of yourself freely by people, however they see fit. And you just have to live with that. There's no way of winning, and it's like you just look worse the more you struggle and resist. The more people try and enclose you in a little bubble, and you go, no, that's not me. I'm deep and meaningful. I'm, or whatever it is you're particularly trying to prove. It's just quicksand, and the more you struggle, the quicker you sink. The only way to escape is through the grandeur of surrender and just not giving a fuck about the whole thing, and getting a sense of perspective above and beyond. So I think having an audience is a wonderful thing and should never be taken for granted, much as it should also be your job as an artist to challenge them as well as you challenge yourself. I don't think you just give them what they want. But it's playing music it's got to be one of the best jobs in the world. So if ever you're sort of torturing yourself to the point that you can't see that, then you've lost your perspective. So I think that unquestionably, just like a plant having a bit longer to get its roots down into this earth, yes, the early years were useful in a way, because when I started out, I was totally green as to what the music business even was. What was this modus operandi? I didn't know, I didn't care. Making a record was like someone was giving me some money to make a record. That was just enormous. That was all I cared about. And beyond that, I didn't have a clue what was going to happen. I didn't have world domination penciled in the diary. You know, it wasn't like that was on my radar. It was just get to make another record. That was basically it. Try and find some people who want to listen to the music. And strangely, it all sort of made its own sort of sense that the music got out there. And even though I couldn't really tell, it did do something. The first record, it lit a few fires, and those ended up being vital because some of them were in Ireland, which became a stronghold for me. And then that was eventually the springboard to my success. So I guess coming upon the whole thing gradually. And I would say this about, was obviously advantageous in some ways, but just to make it to the point where I became successful could be considered an achievement of sorts, because it wasn't particularly easy. But when success comes and everything that comes with it, it doesn't matter how long you've been in obscurity. It doesn't make the transition any easier, I think. I think it's just an ongoing project. I just, for many reasons, I feel like things have taken on a certain perspective now, and I'm in a very good place with it all. I'm at ease as much as I could be with the whole thing. In a weird way, my greatest hits record was a very sort of cathartic experience, because I don't think I'd completely acknowledged what had happened. Some of it I wasn't very comfortable with. For example, the record I made directly after my very successful record, for all kinds of reasons, some of them to do with me, some of them to do with other things, it didn't come together in the way that it should have done, and it was a kind of anemic end product. It went on to sell loads of copies simply because the record before it had been so popular, and this is the way it works. So it got a lot of attention, and people liked the first one so much, or the White Ladder so much. So I'd never kind of really even wanted to look. It was just like, that happened, now I've got to get back to what I do best, which is reconnecting. But you've got to acknowledge everything that happened. You can't leave large portions of time sort of unaccounted for. It's like, so that weirdly putting the greatest hits together and then going out and playing all these songs, which I hadn't even wanted to touch for so long, it brought them all back to me, and it sort of made me whole again. Well, that and time. I mean, White Ladder's the sound of me escaping from the demons of failure or lack of success or lack of attention, or all the sort of doubt and negativity and accusatory glances you're throwing in the direction of the world and the media, all perfectly justified, but they don't get you anywhere. And essentially you have to ask yourself the question, oh, have I got anything else to give? Can I do better? You know, whether the record company did a bad job, or, you know, journalists are some sort of strangely disappointing breed of human that should be shot with a crossbow at every opportunity, whatever you happen to think. It's, could I do more? Can I give more to my music? Could I have done more? And I knew I could. So, all right, let's go again, kind of thing. And that record was very open-hearted, and there's no fear, or I put everything in there, and that's one of the reasons it connects, I think, in a big way. It's not defensive. There's no defensive stance to it. It's just very open, very melodic. And this record I've just made is like the sound of me escaping from the demons of success in a way, the sort of complicated bag of complexities that comes in with the package you get with success and audience and millions of people suddenly getting involved. There's a strange vertigo that comes with that, and it takes some adjusting to. But yeah, the greatest hits thing somehow was part of a coming to terms with the whole thing for me, which was very healthy. And also I was changing a lot behind the scenes, a new band. I'd made a lot of very empowering decisions, and suddenly music came back to me very, very strongly. And my work was very, very alive for me, and I've never been so connected to it. And as a writer, I mean, obviously lyrics are a very big part of what I do. I've never enjoyed myself more than at this current time with the writing aspect. And there's a real vivacity in the work, and a joy of language and expression that, well, I think it shines through. So it's like I've started all over again in a weird way. So also life passes so quickly. It's like you do, as you get a bit older, you think, well, hang on, you know, I'm 41. I better get on with it. You know what I mean? What's this farting around? If you can't give fear 10% or 15% of you, It's like, that's a wasted life, even that much. You've got to live completely and unguardedly. And that's the only way you can defeat all the sort of cynicism that's out there, is just by being open-hearted, I think, as an artist. You sort of know the shape of fame, but until it rests upon you, you don't really know what it feels like. So, but that's not really unexpected. One of the unexpected things that happened was a wonderful thing. I was offered the opportunity to play in a charity football match. So my dreams of being a musician, they go back a long way, but playing a famous football game, that goes back even further. So I got the chance, because of my fame and no other reason, to play. Robbie Williams had this massive UNICEF charity football with many, many very famous footballers, old retired footballers involved, and celebrities, and England took on the rest of the world. It was staged at my team's ground, Manchester United, Old Trafford, in front of 75,000 people, live on national television, with a week's training with the England coach. The whole thing was ridiculous, ludicrous, but it was complete fantasy. And I got to play with people I'd watched as a kid, and against some of the most famous. That was unpredictable. That was absolutely incredible. That was like, oh, what a thing. It's in its own little time capsule in my head. It's like, I remember looking out the hotel window and seeing all these famous footballers sort of saying goodbye to each other the next day, and I realised it was over. I could hardly walk because I just played 90 minutes of chasing the ball. So that I'll treasure forever, and that would never have happened. I've got into a few restaurants and I've had a few wacky experiences that I wasn't bargaining on, all because of my newfound fame. So, but that was the most notable thing. I seem to be seeing everything slightly differently. It's sort of totemic presence casts a long shadow right across everything I'll do forever. It did the numbers, do you know what I mean? People like numbers, you know. So it proves something, apparently. So, but it was a special record, and I won't get drawn into what's best and what's better. All you try and do is to tap into that magic again, but in a different way, in a different place. That had a magic to it. It was fearless in its own small way, and it didn't let you down as a record. So people knew they could go. When we made it, we tried to make a record that would just flow from the very first note right to the end without you ever wanting to go like, oh no, don't like this one, skip. It was very much supposed to have that, because I felt like I hadn't accomplished that since my first record. And things had been too schizophrenic. It's like, I want to be loud, I want to be quiet, I want to be rocky. So that was, we had a very limited palette, which helped in a way. So we set it within this new world that we'd found of weird little samples and things. So yet that record has a magic to it, and just because it became ubiquitous doesn't lessen the depth of some of the music. It's got soul. So it will always be there, and something that people seem to have a real deep affection for, in a kind of Tapestry by Carole King type way. It's like one of those, everyone can listen to it. So it sort of, from the moment of its inception, when we started to play it, you could just see the breadth of the different types of people who were getting into it. It started so small, and the audience were younger and cooler, because it was like a cult audience in Ireland, and then it grew and just began to involve everybody. Well, great. God bless the Irish. Certain kinds of things can still happen there that are much harder to get off the ground in the UK. So it's a wonderful place. It's a magic place, you know, and the word counts for a lot there. The passion, you know, for expression. It's like, the thing is, it's changed a lot since I've been going there. It's become much more European. That sort of homogenized, wealthier sort of look has sort of has seized some parts of it. But still, when you go west and you get out there, you'll see a different world. Well, people don't have a great deal of money, you know, and life is very simple. But there are huge passions, sports and music and writing and ideas. So, yeah, it's so very different from England, you know, in so many ways. There's something that happens over there that anyway, I've been the beneficiary of. So there's an Irish magic for sure, and that. Well, what more can I say about it, really? I mean, that was just an unbelievable chapter. The success that happened there and the lengths that it went to are difficult to comprehend, really, even now. It's not a selfless act. You know, it's an obsession. It's like, it's taken a huge part of me. It is a huge part of me. You know, I've poured so much into it, and it just wants more. It's the beast that wants more. So music and the ideas and writing songs is just, it has a huge chunk of me, and I'm always thinking of how, you know, how can I get. It's like a new path to the waterfall is the title of a Raymond Carver book. How do I get there again? Do you know what I mean? And will it be even better this time? That song. You work away at it, work away at it. And the more you work, the more likely it is that you'll write a good one. But that really good one, you don't know when they're going to turn up. You can't make it happen. That really magic song that happens once every few years or whatever, if you're lucky. You know, well, how do I get more of that stuff? And then, of course, you make it right so that people can plug into it right. It's a connection. Music's a connection. It's like, if you make a song that has all the nerve endings on the outside of it, that people can sense it, how alive it is and how alive they are through the listening to it, then it's just, that's what you want. You want to connect. You're not in a bubble, but you're not making it for them, in the making of it, you're thinking of other people encountering it.